you know what? I can't guarantee that the questions are going to be simple. I get to the point. So, first of all, while I'm finding the questions, does anybody else out there in the audience have a question for one of the panelists? And to be able to go ahead. Yes, sir.
So what I'd like to know is, how do you, as a business, when it comes to choosing and vetting a MSP or someone else, is there a checklist? Are there things that they should look for before they select a vendor to help with their cybersecurity? And how do you convince them that they need a IT vendor and a cybersecurity?
I see we're starting with easy questions. Since I have the microphone, I guess I'll start answering. I'll tell you that when we're prospecting and we're engaging with clients for the first time, whether they've heard of MSP before or if it's a completely foreign concept to them, we tell them that they're interviewing us as much as we're interviewing them, right? So we're looking for partnerships. In the IT world, that's a thing that gets thrown out there a lot, strategic partnerships. A lot of people use that. It's a great sounding word, but what does it really mean? You have to make sure that who you're partnering with is aligned with your business, right? So no company of any type is created equally, right? And it's certainly true in managed services. You've got two premier managed service providers represented up here. And while we have the same title, we do the same things, I'm sure that there's a lot of differences in our approach. So when you're doing that investigation, when you're doing your due diligence to make sure that you're picking the right partners, you want to look for somebody that understands your company's values, that has the experience and the credentials. Is there a checklist? There are certainly common questions that are asked, right? We hear the same questions over and over. And then most people want to ask the tactical questions. What's your response time? How long is it going to take to fix an issue? How do you track your tickets? Things like that. Those are very tactical questions, and there's a lot of difference and variations in that. But the more important questions are, what are you doing to protect my data? What process is that MSP following internally to make sure that they're doing the right things? Because as I mentioned in my presentation, I consider a managed service provider to be a primary vector of attack. If we're not doing the right things, we've got the keys to your kingdom. We better darn sure make sure that we're securing those keys and that we're taking appropriate measures in place. So long story short, too late. When you're interviewing an MSP, my recommendation would be focus on the questions that are going to determine, do I have a high degree of confidence that not this salesperson or not this owner, that company as a whole, do they have the process and procedures in place to make sure that my data is secure and that my business is in good hands?
Jacob, you're going to make a comment on that? Okay. Good.
So I think, great answer, Steve. So what I will consider is when you are finding an MSP, right? So you should find an MSP who is security focused, because right now, especially cybersecurity focused, because you're living in a cybersecurity world. So MSPs are doing business like IT, information technology, and security now. But most of the MSPs talk to, some of them are not highly cybersecurity focused. The next 10 years, right, we're going to have a big problem. So 2023, 24, we're looking ahead is going to be more dangerous. So as an IT or a company, like an end user company, you should always focus on a cybersecurity focused MSP, and you should be talk to them about their stack. You need to understand what kind of stack they have. So I was talking about the last slide about the 12-15 stack that you need to have. So most of the cybersecurity MSPs have the stack ready. So we make sure that you focus on those MSPs before you make a decision on what you're going forward.
One of the things I just want to check with our tech group, because we are doing this virtually, is there any questions from the group as far as in the queue? If you are watching this virtually, please go ahead and put a question in the chat, and we will go ahead and bring that up. Steve 3, I was just going to ask you. One of the things is, what are some of the things that an organization can do on their own, and where would they need that assistance, as far as for either security or either from the standpoint of managed services? Where would you think, or what would you recommend to your clients?
Pray.
Hey, that covers it. Jesus is here.
Right? Listen, awareness is everything. You can't turn a blind eye to these things. You can't. You know, the tagline is real. It's not if, it's when, right? It's important that it's a line item on a sheet with a cost to it. IT is. It's a line item on a sheet for security. But it's just as critical as a line item on the sheet that pays the electric bill, that does your payroll. I mean, it's important. And awareness on it's everything. So you can partner with your IT department. You can partner with MSPs. You can partner with security firms. Questions generally are free, right? There's a lot of resources out to help, and sometimes it's just a matter of being steered in the right direction that you need. Where can I just find the answers? Where can I find a strategy, right? One of the things that I use as a rule when we're talking to prospective clients or even existing clients, I don't write policy. I won't write your company's policy because it's not my company. I'll write processes and I'll help develop methods to enforce your policies, but I can't write them for you. But I will sit down with you and I'll try to understand, what do you do? What does your company do, right? You know, you talked about when you're talking to prospective customers, right, and they're asking you all these questions about the metrics and everything else, and we can show metrics all day, right? But help me understand, what's your company do? Where are you trying to get to? What are you trying to build, right? What's your corporate strategy? And let's put a plan together around that, right? Let's plan for that. Let's figure out what you need in place to do it, both from a technology side and from a security side. What tools are going to be there to help you? And mind you, there's always going to be a fine line between solutions that get put in to accomplish these things and, I'll just say, hindering employees' abilities. I used to just be able to click and do this. Why has this got to be such a pain in the ass? I cussed. It's close enough to noon. But why does it have to be so difficult? And again, it's that mindset. It's a discipline. It's a behavior. You have to do these things to stay secure. You got to be diligent on it.
So
even if it's multi-factor authentication, it's one extra thing.
I think, Steve, when you were talking about the idea of, having aspects of it doesn't cost anything to go ahead and ask questions, open-ended questions on how you can provide that consultancy. And I think anybody that I've talked with, as far as both from a cybersecurity side, from an MSP side, they are the consultants to be able to help you. And sometimes people just think, well, I don't want to, ask those questions that will feel like, hey, I'm a business owner, I should know that. And I think that, what most people try to do is discover that and not go ahead and let their pride get in the way. So that's good. Bernadett, I have a question for you and also for Jacob. Why do you think, and I have to commend you for being able to put that up on the screen as far as comparison between IT and cybersecurity. Why do you think people have a hard time separating those things? And I know you went through it, but I mean, when you talk to a client and they come and ask you, and then how do you go ahead and tell them, no, that's not what that is? How do you help them separate that?
I mean, the approach is we try to help the client. Doesn't matter what their needs are. If we are not the person who would help with that specific thing, then we turn to other companies who we work with to solve the issues that client specifically has. And it is, if you have a cybersecurity focused IT company, I think that's your best way to approach if you are not able to budget it in your company's finance.
What would you like to add, Jacob?
First of all, IT and cybersecurity, right? So IT, we all know. From ages, we're talking about IT. People coming from India, oh, we see an Indian is an IT. Oh, yeah, because IT is famous. Information technology is famous from a long time, right? So cybersecurity is something just came like maybe 7 years ago. Maybe people start putting more serious into it. So when I started CyberHawk, and I was talking to a lot of IT companies, right? When I go and say, hey, cybersecurity, and you need this. It's all foreign to them. They don't understand what exactly cybersecurity is that time. So we were preaching this for last 7 years. Last 3 years, we are seeing a lot of spike. People get it now because they have seen breaches, they have seen malicious behavior, they have seen things they'd not seen before. Earlier, IT was just firewalls, endpoint antiviruses, and all these things are IT for them. But now, it's something different. The world has changed. So cybersecurity is the thing that is a different animal. So I can say that that's how I differentiate it. Like IT is something different, and cybersecurity is totally different.
Okay. Just to follow up on that, how does somebody end up looking at that aspect and understanding that, and then to go ahead and select the product, the vendors? I mean, I'm not putting out that we know you're number one, but how does somebody go ahead and look at that?
That's a very good question. So what I will say is you should find a vendor, not only CyberHawk, I'm just talking a vendor who have a comprehensive approach.
Okay.
If you have a comprehensive stack of security things and have a comprehensive thing together, that really avoids you having multiple vendors sitting on the same company.
Okay.
So my approach would be find a company who is able to provide a complete comprehensive solution to your company will be the best bet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let me just ask Steve, too.
This is the only time I will ever let you call me Steve, too. Go ahead.
If you start signing a check, Steve 1, then I'll know. Anyway, no, what I'm saying is that what Jacob has said, you're sitting there doing consultation to clients, and you have to then determine where you can go ahead and do the solution, or that you bring in partners, which I know that you do. What do you tell a client that says, hey, this is what you should do every day before, even if you don't have an MSP, or even if you don't have a cybersecurity expert or whatever? What would you recommend that they be sure that they're doing before they get smart enough to reach out to other partners?
Yeah, well, typically when that's happening, right? If we're having the conversation, I'm in the room, we're consulting, we're not engaged as their service provider, 9 times out of 10 it's budget, right? They say, well, I just don't have the resources to have a managed service provider. My response to them is that we never want money to be the reason that you're not secure, that you're not safe, or that you're not doing the right things. So we give them kind of the low-hanging fruit, right? If you're not going to engage with us as a service provider, we're still going to talk to you about, hey, here's the baseline things that you need to implement, right? It's the stuff that we've already discussed in here. It's make sure you've got your firewall, make sure you've got VPNs, make sure you've got antivirus and endpoint remediation, the things that you can do internally. But I also want to coach them into growth. If you don't have the resources, or if you don't think you have the resources to partner with a vendor full time, I would challenge you to look at what can you remove so that you can add that to the budget, because it is that important. Everybody needs money, and every department has their budgets, and they need their spend. IT is one of those rare ones that affects every single department in every single business, and you really can't skimp. But I believe I addressed your question with the consulting.
It was, the other thing I wanted to ask as far as the audience, we've got a lot of different disciplines out there. How do you think anybody that's in HR or somebody that's in financial or whatever else, how do you think that IT or cybersecurity impacts you? I mean, do you have a question? Sorry.
Time's up.
No, we're not. Yeah, I said it. We were supposed to be 20 minutes. I said it for 15. I'm sorry. So, from the group, any questions out there that says, hey, how does this impact my business? How does this impact the things that I should be doing? Anybody have any questions to the panel with regard to that? HR or financial or, well, yeah, Aaron? Okay, okay. Anybody, Steve, number 3, you want to answer that?
Why do you need to outsource when you have internal? Right?
Yeah. So I think if you're looking at it from the standpoint of a conversation, you have a question, or you giving me a signal?
Oh, I just, if you have a question from the virtual chat here.
Okay, okay, I'll get that, and that way, yeah. I just didn't know why you were raising your hand, you know. And then, so I think I look at it from the standpoint of like, what is the role of the IT department in a company, or what's the role of the cybersecurity as a company, as opposed to what these people could add. So that's what I think, if I understood the question. Is that what you're saying? Okay, it's on you, Steve.
So, as IT, as an IT guy by trade, right? I've had to have this burden of responsibility that I know everything about every piece of software that's ever been created, right? Ever. And it also comes with this assumption that I can program your microwave, your fridge, and everything else that goes along with it, right? It's just not, it's not realistic anymore. It's not. When we lived in an era before cloud, right, before all this enhanced technology where it was just servers and workstations, sure, we maintain keys of those kingdoms. But we're so far past that now that it's impossible to maintain that breadth of knowledge across all of these things. So we bring in partners, right? We bring in partners who specialize in things, right? I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV, right? It's a matter of knowing when to bring in the right people and the right time to do it. What we'll bring to the table in these conversations, right? You know, you mentioned budget, right? You address that. But you also want to make sure that you're, as an IT guy, again, I'll always make sure that I'm providing at least the guidance from my side of this fence for what we need to engage these people for. Listen, I want to bring in a firm, I want to bring in Jacob's firm, right? Because I need somebody who can watch all these things real time, because we're not staffed to do it. We're, you know, these guys aren't going to sit here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got an IT department of 10 people.
Yep.
And so like you're saying, oh, I can do this. I also have to work with my cyber guy who can help me do this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, so you guys saying you can manage this, so I actually need one person to communicate to you guys in regards to what it is you have to protect. Like, is that something like you guys, conversations you have in regards to like, right, like, I got to make decisions and I'm gonna pay.
Yeah. Pass that down.
Oh, I was going to jump.
I think I heard your questions in a different way. Probably, just want to correct it. So, you're asking, you have a security staff or a security team in your organization, and you may have 6 people. I'm just giving a number, okay? And when it comes to cyber or IT, you're saying that, okay, I can keep one and outsource the rest to a cybersecurity company who can trust 24/7. Is that the question, right? Exactly. So what I'm seeing is, first thing is budget. So we all talked about budget, right? Budget is the key thing. So keeping 6 to 7 people in-house is really high budget, to be honest. And especially in cybersecurity, is really, really a big trouble now because we're not able to find the right resource. The problem is the expertise. IT, because we're all coming from IT. So IT, we can able to fix a lot of things. Cybersecurity is advancing day by day. So you need to keep up. And to keep up, you need to have an expert team. So what my thought, or what I'm seeing from the industry is companies are downsizing their security engineers and go with clients like MSPs, right? And they have vendors like us, right? 24/7, 365 days, holidays, weekends, everything is covered. with a very competitive budget. So that really helps you to build your budget on cybersecurity and IT moving forward.
So the good thing is that, yeah, you don't throw the baby out with bathwater by the idea of saying, let's get rid of the 5 or 6 people that you have. Maybe you look at discovering the skill sets of the people in there, and then you can go ahead and determine what you need to outsource. So if it's beefing up your cybersecurity, or it's like, okay, my IT department is only a help desk. They're not concerned about endpoint remediation or anything like that. They want to be sure that you're covered. And so that is something, especially since it's a budget issue, that's why it's important to have the CEO or the CIO there and the CFO, because anytime you can go ahead and look at your resources and take some of them away as far as for the bottom line, and then outsourcing it, you know, it could be HRs are doing it right now. You know, HR departments were high, and then now all of a sudden they're outsourcing HR. I mean, who'd ever think that you could outsource HR just like that? So it's happening. So what's the question from the virtual?
The question is, what are the differences in roles that MSP and internet teams have when designing a response plan?
Steve, you want to answer that?
Oh yeah, I can do that one. I can do that one. That's an easy one, right? So the different roles between internal and a managed service provider. So first and foremost, right, everything starts with a consultation. So when you are entering into a partnership with a managed service provider, you have clearly defined roles, and if you don't, step back, reevaluate, get those roles established, because it's going to be different for every company, right? I can tell you that across the Callisto Group's clients, no more than 3 of them are the same. There's a lot of variation because there's different need. So you've got to get an analysis. You know, what are your internal capabilities? Because sometimes a managed service provider is going to come in and work right alongside, hand in hand with that internal IT department. Sometimes the MSP is going to come in and completely replace that internal IT department, regardless that MSP has a responsibility to interface with the other departments, IT or otherwise. So you need to be having the right conversations with the right people in the room, and that is going to be different really for every different type of business, every different type of client. Mm-hmm. So I answer your question by not answering it.
Yeah. Any other virtual questions that we have? Not at the moment. Okay. Okay. Well, Sentiment in chat says.
Just yell Steve, and one of us will come. Or Bernadett.
Okay.
What's a breach you've been involved with them without naming the company? Did you recover from that breach? And how did the attacker get it?
We got good stories on that.
So breach is a big thing right now. We're dealing with breach day in, day out. So giving an example, one of the prospect we have a few years ago. This is an immigration attorney lawyer, worked with the USCIS, filing all applications. So we were preaching him the same thing about cybersecurity breach and hack. So he didn't get it first. One day, reached out to us and said, all the applications they download is in a PDF format. So the PDF, there are 50 PDFs that has to be submitted to USCIS that day. Okay, that is a deadline. So he came to the office, opened his folder, checking the PDF files, click on the PDF files, all the PDFs are playing music. That's a terrible thing because, you have to submit everything the day because he already collected the money from the candidates and all the waiting for the visa process, this and that, whatever it is. So it is all playing music. So that's how we have to step in, do something called forensic and breach mitigation. So we have to work with them very closely to figure out what happened, investigation, and then we have to do a lot of imaging. And we have, even though we tried our best, We're not able to success because it's already done. The damage is already done on the site. Eventually, they have two options. One is pay to the hacker, or wait for some other remediation options. Because of the timeline, he don't have an option. He have to pay the hacker. So he has to pay hacker close to $75,000 in Bitcoin. And long story short, so this hacker gave him a key. I was talking to somebody this morning, I think I was talking to Susan. So 80% of the data, they say that, okay, you have the keys for the kingdom, for everything, but they are not. They give him 80% of the key, and they're able to do a lot of things for the same day. But what they do, hacker, is they didn't touch him for that 6 months, 1 year down the line. Hackers have sister companies also. This is a big business. So they give the 20% of the keys to the sister company, and they say, go ahead and hack him again. So this is an ongoing. So what happened is, as soon as he paid, this money to the hacker, they got it, but they have to wipe everything off. They have to do all the breach remediation stops and everything. So forensic and breach remediation is what we are seeing a lot right now. If that answered the question.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, go ahead.
One little addition to this, cybersecurity budget before the event is this much, and then before a hack is about this much.
Yeah.
So it grows tremendously right after a breach, and no guarantees that, again, you don't get hacked again and again. Mm-hmm. And you actually get into a system for hackers. They say you pay the ransom, and they will use it against you the next time they hack into your system, because they know I paid the ransom of $75,000 in Bitcoin, and they keep track of that.
On the business side, what I'm seeing is the minimum ransomware is like $1.25 million. That is the minimum ransomware asking by the hackers. So eventually, I've seen some of the prospects or who have been breached. They are reaching out to FBI, talking about, okay, I've got breach. You know what FBI answers is, you know what, we're dealing with 5 million to 25 million of breach already. So whatever the $50,000 or $75,000 is nothing. They don't have time to do it. Right. So that's what it is happening right now. So the breach world is bigger. So whenever you consider a budget on cybersecurity, it has to be, very concerned on what you're going to spend and how it should be.
Yeah. And one of the things this afternoon we'll end up. Go ahead, pass it down. One of the as the deal goes down, one of the things we'll deal with in the afternoon is why we need to have cybersecurity insurance and everything from that process, because that is going to develop a plan for you to be able to say this is what you should be doing, and like, okay, when you get hacked, who is the first person that you call? And we'll address that this afternoon. Who's the first person you call? What's your plan, and whatever else from that standpoint? Yes, somebody else wanted to pass it down. Okay.
A general question for everybody. Does anybody else get the feeling that cryptocurrency exists solely for the purpose of paying ransomware? Like it's big business, Honestly.
It is. It's amazing. So the other thing is, to my knowledge, it has no relationship to the number of hacks as far as the rise and fall of crypto. So I don't know. That's on another different thing. I don't want to hold you from the idea of lunch or whatever else, but hey, if you have some additional questions, we're going to have a panel, and then also if you have anything, please write it down and give it to me, and then I'll get it to the panel up here. So without further ado, let's give a hand to our panelists. They're doing an awesome job.